Hey folks, Adam AI4UH, and I wanted to show you the newest member of my collection. This is Vibroplex Original, serial number 387480, which was made around 1979. These keys are pretty cool because, there's not a ton of them floating around. There's a lot more of the beige keys that are the vibro keyers, and this is another 1979 key, a vibro keyer. That's serial number 387480. Excuse me, 386986. I was repeating the other one. And yeah, the vibro keyers, they're much more common in beige. The kind of interesting thing that happened around these is around 1979, Vibroplex moved to Maine, and it was those late model New York or the early model Maines. The beige was introduced as one of the colors, but you notice if you look really close, that label still says New York, and this label, let's get it on there, says New York. But these actually most likely were not produced in New York. They were most likely produced in Maine. What happened was they had a bunch of the nameplates that said New York on them still, and they just used up what they had, and then they started the serial numbers over again, which has caused confusion among the masses. But, the reason I wanted to add this to my collection is because I didn't have an original in beige yet. I have a lot of other colors. I don't have all of them, but I have a bunch of others. I'll show you some of the other colors. One of my oldest originals is this one here, serial number 89240. It's made in 1923. You can see that it's pre-1945. It's got the more squared off main frame assembly, and the finish on it's the black Japan. And yeah, a lot of keys were made in black Japan. That was a pretty standard finish in the 1920s. Around the Great Depression, they came out with a few different colors of keys. Keys really weren't selling. I don't know if that was the motivator, but they started coming out with several different colors. This is serial number 105255 from 1931, and this has the blue enamel base, which there's a good number of these floating around. Next up, I've got serial number 105309, and this has the red enamel base. Now, something that you really couldn't see so well on the blue one, look at where this is chipped up on the sides here. They actually painted that red enamel right on top of the black Japan. So that's pretty interesting, what their manufacturing process was like. Sometimes they're completely black Japan underneath, sometimes they're not. Let's see, I think this is blue on the underside. Yeah, this one's blue on the underside. But the next key up is one that I have never seen another of. So the green keys, and this one is serial number 105491, also from 1931. These three colors were all made around the same time, around that Great Depression era. This is the only one I've ever seen, though, that is a two-tone. They painted the green on top and left it black on the sides, and that's pretty cool. Like I say, I've never seen another like that. So the fact that the greens are pretty scarce to begin with, and that I've never seen a two-tone, this is a pretty special key. I'm very happy to have this one in my collection. And then the next one up, of course, is this lightning bug with the white finish. This is the 106332. This was made in 1932. And April Fools, Vibroplex never made a white key. This is actually one that I did, and I will link the video of the process I used to make this right here. This key was in such bad shape that it needed to be refinished, and I said, gee, I really wish Vibroplex would have made a white key, so I made my own. So sorry for the April Fool's joke there. Of course, nickel and chrome finishes have been available through much of Vibroplex's history. This one here is serial number 115551. It's from around 1940. Now, 1940 is around the time that they stopped using nickel and started using chrome. I'm pretty sure this one is chrome. I am not an expert, though, in metal finishes. For all I know, it could be nickel, but I'm pretty sure this one is chrome. You can also see that it still has the cloverleaf damper in there that all the blue racers do, but it's still the more squared off damper. It's a pre 1945. In 1945, that's when they made new molds, and you start getting the more rounded mainframe assemblies. I don't know why I was saying damper there. The more rounded mainframe assemblies, and they literally broke the molds. You can't get this shape of mainframe assembly anymore, or anytime since 1945, except for if you had a parts donor bug. So the next key up is going to be 10 years later. This is 1950, and you can see this is after those new molds came in 1945. So it's got the more rounded mainframe assembly, and this of course is the black crinkle finish, which was the standard for a good many years in there as well. In the mid to late 40s, they started coming out with the deluxe model. The presentation models. And the presentation models were cool because it had that chrome base, but then they also put a gold-plated plate on top of it, a decorative plate. So this is actually a copper plate that was gold-plated, and they put that right on top. This is serial number 218254, made in 1961. Also super common was the gray crinkle finishes, and this is a lightning bug with the and this one was, the serial number is really hard to see on this. This is 227231 from 1962. It's got that gray crinkle finish. Not the greatest example, but this bug is a workhorse. I actually used it for about half of the recent SKCC weekend sprintathon, where bugs were the bonus points. The other half I used a McElroy Mac key. So that brings us back to our 1979 beige key, and like I said, this is brand new to the collection. I've just unwrapped it, so let's see if we can get this thing ready to get on the air. All right, first things first, let me get a bug mat to keep this from sliding around, and let's go ahead and grab one of the M0 MZB bug buddies, because that will make this a cinch to hook up. If you haven't seen these bug buddies, they are pretty cool. That's the M0 MZB bug buddy. Not only does it just screw right down to the binding posts, it also has a built-in capacitor to reduce bounce on your bug, and it's got a second jack so you can actually daisy chain these. So pretty cool. Matthew over in the UK makes these, and something that I have been very happy to use since discovering and starting that conversation with him. Anyway, okay, so that's wired up. Oh, excuse me, that's connected, and now we can wire it up. And let's see if it does anything at all. Well, that's not horrible. Okay, so this is completely out of adjustment. Let's just go through and give it a full adjust. I'm just going to loosen everything up, because if you've seen my how to adjust a bug video, which I will link right here, I always like to start by just bringing her all wide open. Okay, so first things first, what we want to do is move the DA side stop so that it's just barely there. We want it just barely resting on the damper. That's about right. And then we'll take the DIT side stop and we'll just turn that till it's all the way in. I forgot to loosen up this contact post here, so we'll turn this DIT side stop till it's all the way in, and then I'm going to back it off about half a turn. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So let's lock that down for now. And then we want to let this rip and just bring this in till it's just barely kissing. That sounds pretty good. And then we can just move the DA contact until it is at a distance we like. Okay, and that's a fully adjusted bug. So this needs a little more tension, and this spring needs just a little more. There we go. Give that a hair more. Okay, those contacts need a little bit of cleaning. Let's see. Do I have an All-American contact cleaner? Not there. Not there. Let me check the other desk. Okay, I found one. The All-American contact cleaner, a 50-cent bill. Oh, no, wait, that's a dollar bill torn in half. Dollar bills, this linen material, it's actually really great texture to give these contacts a clean. These are silver contacts, so you don't ever want to use a file or sandpaper or anything like that on them. You should try and avoid abrasive chemicals unless it's a really bad shape and you just, have to get some tarnish off of it. But generally, your All-American contact cleaner, courtesy of the U.S. Mint, will get the job done for you. Okay, well, that is not quite sounding great, so let's just pop it apart. I will take it over to the sink and give it a wash with some simple green and see if that improves our situation. Yep, that's a Phillips. So let's use this one. And then on the underside, that's going to be another Phillips. All right. So they're actually not really in bad shape at all. But yeah, little scrub with some simple green, and I'll be right back. And we're back. Tell me that's not an incredible difference. Those things look brand new. And that's why we never want to use anything abrasive on these. We really just want to, keep them clean. These silver contacts will clean up really nice for you. I mean, really you ought to be able to get a lifetime of service out of them. So we'll pop that one back on. And we'll get this one turned back down. And when I get these on here, I like to try and get them really well aligned, which, sometimes they cooperate and sometimes it takes a few tries. Like, yeah, that didn't cooperate. And I'm looking at not just top to bottom, but also up and down. We don't want them touching like this or like this. We want them really right up against each other. I think that's just about gonna do it. Let's go ahead and get the weight back on here. And as a matter of fact, we don't need all this weight. I don't like weights. I like to keep things pretty light because that gives the bug a nice responsive feel. And we can always just throw a pendulum extension on there if we need it. And now let me just eyeball this. That's pretty close. Let's give it a listen. Oh yeah, that's That's doing great. And let's go ahead and put an extension on there because I can't key that fast. Okay, and we are ready to get on the air. Oh, of course now the DOS side contact is misbehaving. Oops, should have just taken all the contacts at once. Okay, take two. You know, I got 99 problems and contacts ain't one. These things clean up so easily. And, you know, chances are if you're having a problem with a key and you're trying to hunt down something strange, really good chance the contacts are just dirty. I mean, even if they don't look dirty, slightly dirty contacts give a lot of funky problems. So, you know, always start there. If you're having any kind of problems at all, clean your contacts and then reassess. You know, if it turns out that you are actually having another problem, great, we can fix that. But always just start with the contacts. Takes, you know, 2 minutes to give these a quick scrub with some simple green and bring them back to new. Or, you know, if they're just a little bit corroded, you know, throw a dollar bill through them and that'll usually do the trick. You know, I've found that as long as I'm using my bugs regularly, I don't have any problems with the contacts. Just a quick wipe with a dollar bill and they're, you know, ready to get back into business. All right, so here's what these ones are looking like. And we'll be right back. And we're back. Look at those now. Like I said, you know, brand new. I think that took me less than a minute. So let's put them back together and see if we're ready to go. You know what? I think I ought to put this one back on first. I think that's going to need to move a little bit, but we'll find out in a minute. I always thought it was funny how big this spring was. You know, it really doesn't take much tension at all on the DOS side, but you know, I guess some people just like to be a little rougher with their keys. All right, same thing. We want to get these nice and lined up, which means that we're just gonna give this a little bit of motion. Okay, take, what is this, 3? Take 3? Bet it's gonna work great now. You hear that little jump sometimes between them? So what that is gonna be, let's unplug this. What that is gonna be is we're not making perfect contact between so the electrical contact, this is a standard model. So you see it doesn't have the jeweled bearings, which means it doesn't have the little curly copper wire here. So it makes electrical contact actually, you know, where the trunnion meets the trunnion screw, where the pivot meets the trunnion screw. So I'm just gonna clean that we could probably just wipe it off, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to grab a tiny wire brush and just go zip, zip, zip on the top of this, and then we ought to be back in business. And we're back, and yeah, just a little oxidation on the pivot or the trunnion screws will keep the connection from being solid, and you really need to have a nice solid connection if you want to get on the air. So we'll do a couple of things here. I'll show you some more of my tricks. First is get that to go actually through the damper there in the rear. Second is we need to get the pivot to go up, and then we can bring it straight down and just give this a little tightening. So what you want is you don't want this thing to be cranked down. I have found that if you loosen it too much, you find that this can rock back and forth a little bit. So you want to tighten it just barely snug. Just barely snug so that it doesn't have a lot of motion, and then lock it down. And that still gives us lots of good motion this way. And then here's the easy way to get this spring back in. Just bring out that tensioner pretty much all the way, and then grab anything, anything flat. I'm going to just use a little pocket knife and use that to get the little tip of that in, and then just retension it. Yeah, and let's go. That was about a half turn. Yep, that still looks good. We'll lock it down again. That looks about right. We'll test it once we get it on there. All right, take 4, right? That doesn't sound quite. When I adjust this, I'm pulling out on it because once you lock it down, it's going to be pushing that screw out. So I'm always pulling out on it when I adjust it. That way when I lock it down, it's still right. That's still not amazing. Let's do one more little adjust on the position of this. Still getting that little bit of jump in there. The underside looks pretty good. Sometimes if I'm having trouble troubleshooting, I'll just grab a little alligator clip and see if I can rule that out. Okay, I got the alligator clip. So this is on the theory that the path to ground from the pivot assembly is not going completely solid through the trunnion screws and the pivot. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect directly to ground and directly to the pivot. Okay, so that proves that if I take this off, you'll start to hear I'm having a little crackle there still. So I didn't clean that bottom trunnion screw. So let's go ahead and get that out. Let me get these wires off of here. And that bottom trunnion screw is kind of a pain to get to. Yeah, so the easiest way to do it is just, you know, take everything off of here. Which gives you the free space to loosen that locking screw. And once the locking screw is loose, then we can just take it out the bottom. And I try not to take these out because it's a little bit more difficult to get these set into the correct vertical position than it is, you know, just taking the top one off. But hey, if we're not making good connection, we're not making good connection, which, you know, that's kind of surprising because it's pretty clean. Huh. Well, that's funny. I can't tell. I feel like maybe I see a little jewel in there. Let's take a look at that top one again. And I know the top one doesn't have a jewel because it's obviously a standard trunnion screw. Yeah, the top one's wide open. Okay, the bottom is too. My eyes were just playing tricks on me. So, a couple of things we can do here. Not only do we want to clean the trunnion screw, we also want to make sure we're getting good ground from the main frame. And those look really good. Yeah, I wonder if the problem is right here. You see this junk kind of in here? I bet you that is a contributing factor to our lack of connection. Let's see what the other one looks like. Okay, so there's our main frame. Okay, now this one actually has a little bit of junk on it. It's probably hard to see on camera, but you see right about where my fingernail is? I think that's actually some of the beige base on there. And that beige base is definitely not conductive. I see where this has been, you know, they tried to take some of this off, but I bet you that's the main problem there, is those screws just aren't making actual good grounding contact to the base. So that is easy to fix. Okay, now folks, I can't stress this enough. Please don't start taking power tools to your bugs unless you're really, really sure that that's the last resort, that it's exactly what's needed. And let's grab a Q-tip. You know, public service announcement, these are not supposed to go in your ears, which, you know, hey, that's fine for me as long as I can still use them to clean my keys. I think that needs just another little touch. Okay, that, knock on wood, should get the job done. All right, so let's start getting this back together. First, where was the one with the little bit of beige on it? We're going to put that on the side that we didn't Dremel, or DeWalt in this case. And of course, don't snug that down yet. We want to get the other screw in there first. And now that one, we want to be very, very tight. This one, we can just give a little snug to. And then let's get our connector back on there. And this one, I had loosened a touch. And of course, we need our insulator so that we can get our other contact post back on there. All right, and then this was the lower trunnion screw. And I'm gonna bring it up until I see it poke out. It was about 1.5 threads. And then we can go ahead and tighten the lock screw on that. If I could see what I was doing. There it goes. Okay, and let's try and get this back through. And remember, I need to get the pivot into the top hole so that I could bring it straight back down into that lower trunnion. There it goes. And then we can just put the upper trunnion in. Okay. Now, let's check our work. Remember, we had these two contacts really, really well lined up. Now I can see that this one is a little high. However, you know, it could have been a little low to start with. Let's see how's this back one lining up. That one's also a little high. Okay, so what we need to do is unsnug that lock just a little bit. We're going to lower this about 1/2 turn. And then we'll bring the upper trunnion down the same amount. I think it could come down another 1/2 turn. And again, same thing with the upper. Okay, that is pretty good. Let's go ahead and tighten that. Got it. And then we'll go through the adjustments once more. First things first, let's get the damper up off the pendulum just barely resting on the damper, and get that locked down. And of course we need some spring tension here. And that was about half a turn. And then this. That looks pretty good. Let's give that a little snug. And then this needs to adjust a little bit, because anytime you move the assembly up and down, everything comes out of adjustment. And it needs to move out a little bit. Okay, that all looks pretty close. I lost count. I think this is take 5, maybe 6, maybe 83. I'm just not sure anymore. Okay, no more crackling, no more clicks. So that main frame was not making good contact to ground. That sounds really good. I'm happy with the tension. I'm happy with that. Let's get an extension on here so that it'll be the speed I like. Yeah, that sounds really nice. All right, that's fantastic. This key is clean and ready to get on the air. We've got bright, shiny contacts. We've got good connection to ground all the way through. And it only took, what, 2.5 hours? No, I don't know. I wasn't watching the clock, but I bet it was about 15, 20, no more than 25 minutes of adjustments. So, yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed looking at all the different colors. I hope y'all enjoyed seeing this fantastic 1979 beige bug from Maine, even though it says New York. Get ready to get back on the air, and hopefully I'll be able to make some contacts with y'all using this very bug. I'm going to put it on my station for, probably the next week or so. So hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a great day, and until next time,